Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Inspired live stream. It is Thursday, March 27th, 2024. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. I'm very excited that you're here with us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us on Rumble, on X, and on YouTube. Today's a very, very important topic. And I want to go back. I'm not going to go back 15 years and 20 years. This has been happening to me for a very long time, but I'll go back to the year 2020. You all remember what began in 2020, what started. And as soon as this came out, we started saying, hold on a minute. This is something completely different than what it appears to be. This is what they're going to do. And they're going to tell you there's only one way out of this. Don't fall for it. And people were saying, you're just a fearmonger. Stop it. You're a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat. And they kept calling me a fearmonger. And they said, they're not even talking about this yet. It will take years to develop something like that. You know what I'm talking about, the juice. And then we said, this is not what it appears to be, but they're going to keep you under fear and pressure. Do not fall for it. Oh, you're just fear mongering. Why are we even talking about this? Then the end of 2020 rolled around. And at the end of 2020, the juice came out. And then we said, you know, this is what was in the works for a very long time. There's an agenda here. You know, there's a goal here. Something on this earth needs to be minimized, decimated. They're trying something here. People say, "Oh, you're just a fearmonger. This is gonna liberate us. It's gonna get us out of this." And you know, then everything unfolded. 2022, we said, hey, you know, this is about to come to an end here, but there's going to be another subject, another thing that they're going to push, and we're going to see some worldwide catastrophic events, and we're going to see huge fires and floods and whatnot, increasingly so, in disasters, because the climate thing is really, oh, you're just a fearmonger. Every single time, the same reaction. And I'm not reacting to it any longer. When you see a group of people on a train that's racing towards a cliff, there's the abyss. Are you gonna warn and wave your arms and say, watch out, there's a cliff coming, stop the train, hit the brakes, watch out? Or are you gonna just go, well, you know, conspiracy theorist, you know? What cliff? There's no cliff. So when we talk today about the genetic takeover, about stealing humanity, really stealing humanity, then people will come out and say, you're just fear-mongering. But how is that fear-mongering? How is presenting the facts to you fear-mongering? I'm gonna play a video for you. It's about 8 to 9 minutes that I think we should watch together. I edited out the key pieces of a presentation by Patrick Wood, who's an author, has been in the field for a very long time, the founder of technocracy.news. Great website if you want to keep up with things. And let's watch this together. And then let's talk about what is the most important subject for society today. The most important subject for society today. I'm telling you, this moment that we're in right now, it is past the Event 201 moment. The Event 201 moment was when, in October of 2019, they simulated the complete outbreak, completely what was going to happen just a few months later. They simulated the whole thing out. We talked about this. We're past this point when it comes to transhumanism, the genetic takeover. But still, if we don't pay attention to this right now in this very moment, and we don't come to very, very clear conclusion at this very moment in time, then they will truly succeed in stealing humanity completely. So now, without further ado, let's watch this together.
The United Nations picked up biodiversity as promoting the genetic takeover of the planet.
I am Patrick Wood. I'm the editor of Technocracy News and Trends. I'm going to talk about genetic takeover, in particular of all the DNA on Earth. That's what makes your body work, right? This definition was given by the founder of modern transhumanism by the name of Max Moore. He wrote this back in the early 1990s. Transhumanism promotes an interdisciplinary approach to understanding and evaluating the opportunities for enhancing the human condition and the human organism opened up by the advancement of technology. Attention is given to both present technologies like genetic engineering and information technology, and anticipated future ones such as molecular nanotechnology and artificial intelligence. The convergence, NBIC, you'll see this bantered around. What it stands for is on the inner circle, the acronym NBIC, nanotechnology on the upper left, biotechnology in the upper right, information technology and cognitive technology. That's, and of course the lighter green around the outside gives you an idea, a clue what those refer to. So when they talk about convergence, they're talking about taking all four of these together and applying this new science, this NBIC science, to the condition of man, to advance the condition of man. I'm talking about your humanity, your physical body, in particular here. Here's what the World Economic Forum says about transhumanism. The central premise of transhumanism, then, is that biological evolution will eventually be overtaken by advances in genetic, wearable, and implantable technologies that artificially expedite the evolutionary process. The people that are pushing transhumanism today, including the World Economic Forum, have this idea that however we got here, it wasn't by intelligent design, however, because we now have the technology to modify the elements of life, we will take over intelligent design from here on. They honestly believe that and have said that. This is intentional. It's about every living thing on Earth, everything on Earth. Go back to Rio de Janeiro in 1992. This is where Agenda 21 was created. And this was what kicked off modern sustainable development. But there were some other interesting things that happened in that time back in 1992. So I want to take you back to 1994. There were two people that attended the 1992 convention. They were the original Greens. They wrote a book 2 years later, and they digressed. They said, you know what, we went, we participated, we even voted, and we went to all the parties, and we heard everything that happened, and we disagree with the Rio conference altogether. The Earth Brokers was their book. It was written by Chatterjee and Finger. This is what they wrote. We argue that UNCED, that's the Rio conference, Agenda 21, has boosted precisely the type of industrial development that is destructive for the environment, the planet, and its inhabitants. We see how, as a result of UNCED, the rich will get richer, the poor poorer, while more and more of the planet is destroyed in the process. The Biodiversity Convention was one of those things that was going on at the same time. This is what they write. This is shocking. The convention implicitly equates the diversity of life, animals and plants, to the diversity of genetic codes. By doing so, diversity becomes something modern science can manipulate. It promotes biotechnology as being essential for the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. The idea of biodiversity as manipulation of genetic codes is foreign to almost all the population, and yet this is exactly what they said. Now, they went on to say the main stake raised by the Biodiversity Convention is the issue of ownership and control over biological diversity. The major concern was protecting the pharmaceutical and emerging biotechnology industries. By their own admission, this was not some splinter issue. He said this is the main stake. The United Nations picked up biodiversity as promoting the genetic takeover of the planet. That may sound shocking, but listen. The chief medical officer of Moderna, he's now retired from there, Tal Zaks, he said, and this is on the website at one point too, got scrubbed, you might imagine, we're actually hacking the software of life. We think of it as an operating system. Chief medical officer is developing this stuff. So if you could actually change that, if you could introduce a line of code or change a line of code It turns out it has profound implications for everything. It kind of sets your hair on fire, doesn't it? This is the guy who worked for the company that said, oh, this is perfectly safe. No problem. So what's been GMO'd since 1992? How about seeds, crops, insects? Oxitec's been releasing GMO mosquitoes in multiple places, including Florida, that have a kill switch in them so that the next generation can't survive. Animals have been GMO'd ad infinitum: pigs, chickens, turkeys, fish, a big deal on fish, salmon, trout, catfish, tilapia, striped bass, flounder, all these types of fish have been GMO'd to grow faster and quicker, and maybe with some new things in them that we've never ate before, who knows. Bacteria, viruses have been GMO'd like crazy. And lastly, humans. The human domain, of course, we're more familiar with now because of COVID. Messenger RNA, if you don't understand it, plenty of articles out there to go figure out what it is. RNA, you can figure that out too, and most importantly, DNA. That's the ultimate state of this, the static state of your genetic code in your body. Messenger RNA, by the way, they told us, of course, it would never, ever, ever, ever get into your DNA. Never. Humans are on the chopping block now. Everything else that was available to edit has already been edited. And so humans were simply just the last frontier. 1971? Did you miss this one? The new genetics, man into Superman. How about 1977? Did you miss this one? The DNA Führer, tinkering with life. 1984, shaping life in the lab, the boom in genetic engineering. How about 1994? Genetics, the future is now. New breakthroughs can cure disease and save lives, and how much should nature be engineered? How about 1999? Gotta love this one, it's got a snake in it. The future of medicine, but listen to the subtitle, How Genetic Engineering Will Change Us in the Next Century. How about 2015? The Gene Machine, what the CRISPR experiments mean for humanity. The reason I'm showing you these, right, is because Time Magazine, it was one of the original magazines, media companies that was allowed to attend the Trilateral Commission meetings back in the 70s. They could go in and listen to the meetings, but they couldn't report on it. Okay, here's your favorite person to hate. You can't make this up. A postmodern condition is the end of humanity's reliance on our congenital bodies by transforming our frail version 1.2 human bodies into their far more durable and capable version 2.0 counterparts. Are you ready? When I say these people are off the rails, you cannot imagine how far off the rails until you see stuff like this. When you talk about transforming people's bodies through genetic engineering into something that they never voted for, never asked for, and never wanted, you have to conclude, this is where I conclude, these are monsters of iniquity. And here's how I explain the Great Reset. Technocracy is to societal structure and operation. It's the transformation of the global economic system. These people are transforming the whole world, and when Klaus Schwab says the Great Reset, do not think he's just talking about one singular thing. There are two parts to the Great Reset that is very clear on their website. Technocracy is to societal structure and operation as transhumanism is to the humans who live there. That's why the bums rush is on. Get control of and to change human DNA into their image and their imagination. I want to tell you that this whole thing is nothing more than warmed over eugenics.
All righty, friends. Well, these 8-9 minutes kind of go very fast because of the density of information. I would encourage you to watch the whole presentation. It's only about 38 minutes long. We put the link in the description. And go check out technocracy.news, his books, Patrick Wood's books, and the whole subject around it. The point here is we are this train, the proverbial train that I talked about before we watched this video here, that is racing towards the cliff, and all the people that are standing on the side and are warning and waving their hands like we do and saying, hold out, watch out, there's a cliff coming, stop the train. The train is literally hanging over the cliff. It hasn't fallen up, but it's hanging over the cliff. That's how far down we are this road. This has been institutionalized while the whole world was talking about things that don't matter, frankly, compared to this. This has been codified. This has been, and by the way, by the time that lawmakers that are unwilling, by the way, to address this anyways, because they're all old and frail. They love the idea of eternal life. So their stock portfolios from insider trading can grow infinitely, and they can enjoy their life. The Nancy Pelosi's and whatnot. By the time that some even let's say honest lawmakers catch up with what's going on, it's the same with digital technology in the internet and stuff. By the time that people understand what's going on, it has long happened. By the time that people caught on to what Google was really doing and what the whole Google operation is really about, who funded it and for what purpose, the opportunity to regulate this was long over. Here we are, and this is again what I'm saying to you every single day in so many ways is there is no institutional body, there is no lawmaking body, there's no Congress, no Senate, no executive, no administration that you can currently count on that will do anything substantial about this. But this needs to be put on to a complete halt and stop immediately. I don't care how many people say it's wonderful because people that are in a wheelchair will be able to. I don't care about any of this at this moment in time. We have zero public discussion. We have zero ethics and values involved in this. We have no discussion. And this is racing towards the inevitable point where the merger between technology and biology will be irreversible. And you and I will be the absolute minority. Now, I'm fine with that, right? I'm totally fine. We'll leave society. We'll be out. We'll never go into a city again. I don't care if I ever use any of this infrastructure nonsense ever again, if that means we'll stay pure. But we have to understand that this split is we're so close to this split. And that everything that they're saying here actually means something even bigger than that. What does that mean when they take over genetics, when they take over DNA, when they take over biodiversity? And how do they do it? They established a legal framework. That was established ahead of time. So now, listen to this. Every time that an organism is modified, what happens? This is now a new organism. It is usually patented. And as such, it is in the ownership of those people who modified it, or the company, or whatever, the entity. We have said over and over and over again, what happens with the juice if it changes you? And there's a clear definition within the current legal framework of what change means. If it changes you to that degree, do you not understand what that means? They are, by doing that, by altering the genetic code of all life forms, they're claiming ownership over those modifications and the modified life forms. Now, you might still feel like, Jenny Smith or Jack Johnson that you were last year, but hey, maybe you've taken some things that have changed some things inside of you. And believe you me, sooner rather than later, they will come out and they will claim ownership. They will say this is not the same life form that it was a year ago. You are not pure human any longer. There is now a new life form here, and we claim ownership over that life form. This is the easiest thing to prove. You go through history. What did Monsanto do? What did they do? They modified a crop. Then they gave that shit away to farmers until they got hooked on it. That crop was a suicide crop, which means after you had one harvest, you had to buy their activators in order for that crop to be feasible or for it to even grow again, or it was a suicide crop. It would never grow again. But not just that. What else did they do? Now, here you are, a farmer that used their modified crops, but your neighbor farmer doesn't use them. They just use heirloom seeds and whatnot. Now, if Monsanto found, because wind will spread that, right? If they found the modified crop on the field of the farmer who didn't purchase from Monsanto, they claimed ownership. And they said, hey, We found our crops. You didn't pay for that. You have no licensing fee. You have nothing. And they sued them and they took away their land. And this happened, I don't know, God knows how many times, because they claim we have a patent on this and you're not authorized to use this patent. You have no license. This is how they have basically enslaved the farming industry and hooked them, like they hooked them on their suicide GMO crops, like a dealer hooks the junkie on their heroin. That's exactly what they did. And they claim ownership over all these. So when you are out there and you're getting these seeds and you're getting these crops, guess what? They're patented. You don't own whatever harvest you have from that. And they could come in, if they found out that you have it and you didn't license and purchase from them, they can claim ownership and they'll sue the hell out of you. I mean, they're one of the biggest companies in the world now. And this they're doing with every species, with every animal. They're doing it with every plant. They're doing it now with humans. They put that in the fine print. People just don't read it. And we're at this crucial juncture where I'm so over being called a fearmonger. If somebody who presents facts is a fearmonger, then you have to check your definition on what that means. This is a fact, and people don't want to hear it. Like people didn't want to hear it about the Jews. They didn't want to hear these things. They said, oh, I'm just walking the path of least resistance, and, you know, my body is going to magically flush out everything that's not beneficial for me. And these la woo woo fantasies, when they really have never developed those abilities to do that. There are ways to do that, by the way, but they've never developed those abilities. They just walked in fear and found justifications to walk in fear. Now, at what point will we take responsibility? Because I'm telling you once again, there are good people in courts, in the legal system, in the lawfare system, which it really is, right? There are good people in all over the place. But this requires a whole of society approach where we say, no, not a little more. And we're not going to see how this works out and how this plays out. We're going to put a stop to it. We're actually going to send out cease and desist orders to all these companies, and we're going to close the labs for now. We're going to shut the whole operation down, and we're going to have an education campaign for what is really going on. Because it is now almost April of 2024. We are a mere months away from the next election, and election years are, in order for topics to emerge, and in order for important subjects to come to the forefront, election years are always good for that. But still, it is almost April, and transhumanism, AI, CRISPR, gene editing, and Neuralink and brain chips, and all of this is nowhere to be found in the campaign talk. It hasn't penetrated the mainstream whatsoever. They don't want to talk about it. They are actually suppressing messages and videos and live streams like this one consistently, because that's a conversation no one wants to have, because at this point they figure we'll just take it to this irreversible stage. And I will once again quote Jean-Claude Yunker, the former president of the EU Commission, appointed, not elected. And he said once in an interview, he said, the way we do this here is we tell the public through the media what we want to do. If there's no huge outrage, if they don't throw a fit, then we just keep on going until it is irreversible. This is how these people think, if they're even people at all. This is how they think. In their minds, they're so far gone. And they're so disillusioned. They're so detached. They have no sense of any divine spark within them or within anyone else. They look at you and I and everybody else as cattle. That's what they look at just cattle. And they look at us as something that is inherently flawed, a biological mistake that has all these messy emotions and these messy ideas of free will and this messy self-ownership wish. And they're just trying to edit this out of us. That's all they want to do. They just edit this out of us and pacify us into a robotic species. And this is one of the things we can't come back from. You know, when you turn to drugs or you turn to some or alcohol, anything else, you can make a decision in the future, even though you might have hurt yourself and others, but you can still make a decision and you can start healing and you can start getting away from that and you can change your life. But that merger between technology and biology and that ownership takeover, which is really the underlying issue that nobody's talking about, that they're claiming ownership then over you. Once this is through, it's through. There's only one way. There's only one way out of that particular equation then, and you know what that is. It's horrible. It's messy. And the silence is staggering. The unwillingness to look there is staggering. The ignorance to me is staggering. We are, compared to this issue in the public arena, we're discussing Stone Age issues. And of course, you know, all kinds of distractions and all kinds of bullshit that's coming up and going down and doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things, when this is the issue of our time. Because it also means that if you and I and everyday normal people, brothers and sisters everywhere, don't take very specific actions and say very clearly no and make our voices heard and spread this information, if we don't do this, we might be the last pure generation. Or one of the last ones. Maybe there's one afterwards that comes that will not do it. But the most people that I know that are in their teens, that are in their 20s, I mean, there is zero critical thinking around this, because apparently they have parents who didn't teach them critical thinking, who don't discuss anything because they put them in front of a screen. It's much easier. They let the TV educate them. And if they can, they give them money so they're quiet and go out and do something and don't bother them. Well, we bothered our children. We bothered them with these discussions. Actually, to them, it wasn't a bother. It was just normal. We just sat around the table and we talked about this. Actually, the beautiful thing is that we told them these things were coming 15, 20 years ago, and what to look out for and how to, you know, how to stop and think about things, how to ask, why is this being pushed on me? Why is this such a big hype all of a sudden? Why are they doing this right now? And this is how they learn to think. We didn't say this is the conclusion you need to come to. It's just stop. If something is, you know, coming at everybody all at once, and if it's the biggest hype and push and everybody talks about how it's the most wonderful thing, you should stop and ask yourself, where's this coming from? Whom does this benefit? Who brought this out? Who has the means to push something on everybody all at once? And that's how they learn to think. And so when they then see these things coming, they're automatically going, hold on, there's something else at work here. And there is something else at work here. And I don't know how to put it any other way, but there's only one person that you can look to help you with this. And that's the person that's looking right back at you from the mirror. I can't say it any other way. And that's a very unpopular thing to say. It continually means for us, for our work here at Inspired, that people are dissatisfied with how we present information, because it is much easier to just blame it on the World Economic Forum. It's much easier to just blame it on the UN, on the WHO, on a Trilateral Commission, and all these other organizations that have been pushing this so hard. It's much easier to say they're the culprits. So then what? Okay, they're the culprits. That's not wrong, but who's going to solve it? And there is simply no entity out there that's going to come and save us from this, because we have to say no. We have to say yes when we mean yes, and we have to say no when we mean no. Do you not know? Okay, let me ask you this way. Statistically speaking, and I'm going to have to go and look back at the numbers, but I would say statistically speaking, in every family, if you look at the wider circle of a family, there is at least one person who got talked into the Jews. Do you think, for the most part, if you look at them, do you think they are still the same being, physically speaking, that they were before that? Have you not noticed? And in some instances, absolutely unbelievable changes. Have you not noticed that they seem to be somebody else? Because frankly, they are. There are differences. There were different things that were put out for different reasons. But statistically speaking, I would venture to say in every family in the Western world, at least, probably same for Asia. I don't know. It's about Africa. It might be different. But statistically speaking, that has already happened in every family. So it's not like it's not like this is coming. This has come to pass in certain ways. And the idea at this point, because of the lack of substantial opposition and the level of mass hypnosis, the idea at this point is we're so far, I'm speaking from the perspective of the perpetrators, we're so far gone that it's okay to put it in everything, in the air, in the water, in the food. We just put it everywhere. We just put that nanotech everywhere. Self-replicating nanotechnology. Let me repeat that. Self-replicating nanotechnology. Sounds like science fiction, but that's what's happening. Tiny little robotic, this is macro. It's on a macro level. Tiny robotic systems that are self-replicating, that are changing who we are, what we are. And then people go on and say, hey, just invest in the next big biotech company because you're going to make a lot of money. For what? For what? For what experience? For being a biorobot? Go back, watch the Terminator movies. They were violent, right? They were rough. But man, it was 1981 or 82, remember? And they got everything right. I wonder how. I wonder how they got it. I'm pleading here. I want to connect with real adults. And what an adult does is look at the facts, look at the situation at hand, acknowledge that these are the facts, and then look for suitable solutions. That's what adults do. Enough with the fairy tales. Enough with the woo-woo. And this is coming from someone who knows that everything is first created in the invisible realm. I know that. But people get stuck there. They get stuck in the idea that they could just sit on their couch and wait it out. There is no waiting it out. There is no moving somewhere else. There is no place on earth left. This is not a Western problem. This is a worldwide thing. And the idea is very simple. This is, if you don't want to read documents, if you don't want to read the UN Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, if you don't want to read all these long, boring documents where you need to translate the bullshit that they're spewing into everyday language, if you don't want to do that, just go watch the Hunger Games. Go just watch a few random futuristic movies coming from Hollywood. And you know, when you take away the personal drama, which will be real, but when you take all that away, just look at the key points that are consistent through all these movies. Some key points are consistent. You will never see a movie come out of Hollywood that paints a substantially different future. There are just different kinds of dystopian futures, but there's not one future where the human family remains pure, where we return to natural principles, where we swear off of this technocratic path and our addiction to technology, and where we focus on the natural space, the harmony, the biological systems, and harmony. There are no such Hollywood movies. But you wonder why. You wonder why there are no such popular books out there in the fiction or nonfiction arena of mainstream publishing. There are no TV series. Apparently, Angel Studios has one in the making that might be a little different, but that's it. I've been looking for them. You know, you have to go back, watch series like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, great show from the 90s, or maybe The Little House on the Prairie, or Was that what it was called? I think A Little Farm in the Prairie. Anyways, some wholesome potential, but they don't show a vision of the future. They show a past. I don't know how to say it. The only thing I can ask you to do is imagine if you had all the knowledge about what happened in 2020, 21, and 22, those 3 years, because it was really 3 years. If you had all the knowledge that you have now and you could go back to the beginning of 2020, and you held all the knowledge you have now, what would you have done differently? And imagine if only 20 to 30% of the population would have that opportunity, having all the knowledge, knowing what was going to come, and how they would have reacted differently, what they would have done differently, and how they would have inspired many more others to follow suit. And here we are. This is not a this is not a potential for the future. I'm talking about something that is here in the moment. The full genetic and legal takeover of all biology that exists. And this is all that we will take to regulate everything and everyone. They did not have ownership over us, biologically speaking, yes, only with our implied consent, which we could withdraw. But once they modify humans, which they have done to a certain extent already, they own them. They literally own them. And they have the legal paperwork to prove it. Whether that's how people feel, or whether people acknowledge it or not, does not matter. It's a legal framework, and that's what they go by. Here's the thing. We still have a somewhat free flow of information on the internet. A lot has been scrubbed. If I compare this internet to the internet of 10, 15 years, well, probably 15 years ago now, a lot has been scrubbed. A lot of things cannot be found anymore. And they are, by scrubbing the internet and by altering the history of the internet, they are, of course, changing perceptions every day. There's one tactic that I've observed that they will use. So whenever a term becomes popular that is a truth-seeking term, and there's many of those, right? Everything that it falls into the big arena of conspiracy theories, there are all these terms, right? They take that term and then they create other products that they call the same. They create video games and whatnot. So they flood the internet with misleading information around this subject so you don't get to the bottom of it. You don't have a free search engine. I can't find one. Every time I think I found one, I can immediately see how they're censoring. And some are even, I mean, I compare Brave, for example, a browser that was suggested to us years ago as being a free browser. I find Brave, now this is like sour grapes coming out of my mouth, I found Brave even worse than Google. I tend to find more open information on Google than I do on Brave, just when I compare. DuckDuckGo, same thing, and many others. So we still have a somewhat free flow of information. We can still have this communication. I encourage you to go out there and study this. Study transhumanism for the sake of having conversations with your children, with your grandchildren, with anyone who will listen, not to preach to them, but ask questions. Ask questions. Have you heard this? Have you seen this? What do you think about this? You know, when people first get in touch with these ideas of transhumanism and altering and improving, and it's always through the medical arena. Oh, we're just going to improve ourselves. We can finally get rid of all these sicknesses. But if you ask a few critical questions, is, you know, what created all these sicknesses? When was the boom in cancer really? Since when have cancer rates exploded? You know, what kind of behavior, what was introduced into society that made that happen? Oh, more technology. Oh, more processing. Oh, more this. So what we're saying here is more of the same will all of a sudden bring a better outcome. So if the overall explosion of technology in all sectors of society is a very strong factor in the explosion of our sicknesses, then the logical conclusion is let's have more technology to solve this problem. That sort of doesn't, that sort of doesn't ring true for me. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. So rather than the preaching, have conversations where you ask, but first educate yourself. Go to technocracy.news is a great website. It's probably, you could spend days and days and days just, it'll lead you so many different directions where you can learn about all this. Joe Allen, transhumanist expert, many others out there. But if you simply want to go to the root of all of this, go to Google, go to their development websites, listen to guys like Ray Kurzweil when they talk about it. They are saying this openly. Listen to the wet dreams of the Mark Zuckerbergs as they put this out, and they're clearly telling you what they're doing, what they're working on, and how they see the future. And don't take it lightly, because think about how many billion people today use Google and use Facebook. So to say that these companies don't have massive influence, they steer the internet. They're not on the internet, they steer the internet. They ultimately decide what you see and what you don't see, what you can and what you can't say, and all of those things. And now the next step is to make sure that you cannot fall out of line, even if you want to, even if you wanted to. Biologically, you won't be able to if that comes to pass. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I encourage you to go look at Patrick Wood's full presentation on this. Check out his books on transhumanism. Check out the website, technocracy.news. And please, most importantly, make this a main subject of your conversations. Just ask, what is technocracy? What is transhumanism? What is gene editing? What is CRISPR? Ask these questions. I want to create a revolution of knowledge around these subjects in the next 12 months. And we've been at this for a while. So we can go out into the supermarket and people know what these subjects are and are educated, just like they became educated on the subjects and whatnot. All right, my friends, thank you. Much love, many blessings. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon.